Welcome Strategy Battle Gamers to another GBHL YouTube channel video. You're here with channel host GBHL James, and today's video I'm going to be bringing you what is a long awaited tournament review of the SBG's The Seven Stones tournament, which happened a few months ago now. Now, a lot of things have happened between the tournament and now. Of course, I did get married and I've had a honeymoon and I've got a puppy and all kinds of things have been going on, so it's going to be really tough for me to recollect. So in the background here, and bearing in mind that I am in work, so people might be coming in at any moment, in the background I do actually have the rules pack up. I have managed to retain the sheet here that was given to us during the tournament, which should help me remember what games we had and when. And hopefully this will give you a good idea of what the Seven Stones doubles tournament was like. So this was going to be GBHL Tom and Damian's first tournament, and they were running it as the SBG magazine pairing. Now originally there was going to be absolutely no way that I would ever have been able to make this tournament. It was literally the weekend before I was getting married, I believe. So let's have a little look at the dates here. If I remember rightly, it was, there we go, 24th and 25th of May, so Sunday and Bank Holiday Monday. Yeah, so literally 2 weeks later, I was going to be getting married. And now I'd already made the commitment that I wasn't going to be going to many tournaments this year. And of course, that was going to be a big shame, not being able to support Tom and Damian, who of course are involved in the channel, running their first tournament, which was very exciting. But it wasn't just that was exciting, it was also their rules pack. So I'd like to start off this tournament review talking a little bit about the rules pack and what I liked about it. First of all, the presentation. I know it sounds like a really weird thing to say, but it looks cool. It looks cool, and I think it's often an oversighted thing. Of course, a rules pack really is there to give information for players, but at the same time, especially with so many tournaments coming out and about, not that these tournaments are competing with each other really, but I guess in some ways they are, because people have got to choose which tournaments they want to go to. And I actually think the rules pack is a really good shop window and sort of a little look into which tournaments you want to go to. You look at a rules pack, and if it looks cool, then I think you're going to be more likely to choose that tournament and the one that looks a little bit duller. So you're starting to see the evolution, really, I think, of the tournament rules pack in the Great British Hobbit League scene. I think slowly you'll see these rules pack try and look more exciting, so that new people look at those rules pack and think, I want to go to that. So it does look really cool. It's obviously got a lot of the Tolkien lettering, a lot of the SBG magazine kind of things you can relate to if you read SBG magazine in terms of fonts and presentation and those types of things. Now, Tom and Damian don't have a venue, and they were very kindly loaned Titans Wargaming Club, which is in Finchley, the home of the Longbottom Carnival. Longbottom Carnival is the longest running independent SBG tournament, I believe, and they run a good tight ship down there. I think it's the second largest after us in terms of the attendance, the number of people who attend. Bilbo's just saying hello. You say hello? Oh, look at that for a kiss! Look at that for a kiss. Yeah, I knew you existed back then, but you weren't part of our house, were you? So yeah, Damian and Chris, who run Titans Wargaming Club, they very much. Where are you going? They very much allowed Tom and Damian to use Titans War and really help them with things like terrain and stuff as well. So it's a good venue. It's in Scout Hut. We've been there before. If you've seen tournament reviews about Longbottom and the other events they've run, I think I went to Shadow and Sorcery as well, and you'll be able to have a little bit of an idea of what they were like. Now, it wasn't just the look of the rules pack that made it exciting. It was also the content as well. So let's talk a little bit about that. Now, I knew that this was going to be a doubles event. I have never ever been to a doubles event before. Okay, and I wasn't intending to go to this, of course. But looking in the rules pack, so this is the wonderful thing about having a puppy, is that you have to constantly keep an eye on him, and you know exactly when he wants to go for a purori, and he knows exactly how to look at you and try and avoid doing it. So yeah, let's carry on. So it wasn't just the fact that it was a doubles tournament that was going to make this event fun. Of course, because doubles, you know, you're going to get a different kind of play style on the whole. People who go to doubles, you're going to get less of that kind of competitive mindset, because you've not got that sort of singular sort of slightly egotistical, not necessarily in a negative way, but something to prove, you know, of yourself from a winning point of view. You don't really have that to work with. So yeah, doubles already sort of implies a bit of fun, although some people can go to doubles to try and be competitive. Now this rules pack are very sort of specifically set out to try and encourage really fluffy, fun armies, and also to reward people in quite a significant way for doing that. So they did bring in some really sort of important rules for that, which I shall get up now. Now it's very important that each team played with a combined army of 800 points, either good or evil, chosen from Lord of the Rings source books, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, of that 800 points, each player had to bring a 400-point army, and it had to be from a single army list. Okay, now each force had to come from a different army list. So on the whole, that was adhered to. There were a few situations where that wasn't, but on the whole, it was adhered to. And the idea that was you'd come up with two armies that would almost certainly work together from a fluffy point of view, and you were trying to come up with some kind of fluff. And there are various rules for that. And then there was the next bit, which was about the theme of your force. And this is the bit that I really, really liked, and that I was gutted I was going to be missing out on. So the conundrums you had for the theme of your army, for the composition: would the two armies have been likely to fight alongside each other? Were all the named heroes alive at the same time? Have the players given themselves a disadvantage in competitiveness in the name of theme? Have elements of the army been included purely to boost the army's in-game effectiveness? Is it really cool? Just with that alone, you can see how important that emphasis it was on this tournament, and you could certainly see that. Obviously I'm doing this tournament review because I did end up going, but you could definitely see that when you looked around at some of the armies that were there. You know, you have people bringing the 9 ring rays, for example, unnamed, you know, mounted ring rays. I mean, that's great fun. You have people bringing sort of the new Mirkwood and the Lake Town stuff together. You had sort of Numenorians with old elves and old elven heroes. So yeah, that was really, really flufftastic, and there was some very cool stuff in there. So yeah, that was another cool part of what Damian and Tom were putting together. But one of the most interesting things that I really liked the look of this rules pack, remember this was when I pretty much knew that I couldn't go, was also how the tournament worked. So the way that it worked is that you were drawn into different groups, and this was completely random. So it did rely on there being a certain number of teams, and you got put into a group, and your games on the first day would determine what group you would be in on your second day. And then that would allow you to try and win that group overall. So let's get this right. If you were put in a group on the first day, that would sort out which group you would be in on the second day. So what that meant was that on the second day, everybody had something to play for, because the prizes for, and this was a really, really cool thing, I thought was really cool, and it's something that I've tried to introduce ever so slightly into the Redesolation of Stockport 2015, which will be coming in October this year. I really like the idea that even if you did awful on the first day, even if you brought something that was fluffy to its absolute detriment, that on the second day you could go on and get a prize that was as good as the people who maybe had tried to game it and brought something that was a bit more competitive and won the top prize, as it were. Okay, so I really, really like that idea, this idea that, you know, the first day was seeding and the second day everybody had everything to play for. And of course, with it being the Seven Stones tournament, if you've not sort of clicked the reference yet, that of course is a reference to Palantir. There were also 7 stone prizes, which we'll go on to a little bit later. So these were things that I was pretty gutted about not being able to attend, just as a little bit of a thing on that structure. So on the second day there were a bunch of people who were entered into Palantir Cup, which was the top one. The people who were sort of in the middle were in the Palantir Plate, and the people who were at the bottom were playing for the Wooden Axe. Okay, there were also prizes for the best themed army, which was a TO vote, the most honourable player, which is most sporting, best painted army as well, and then also some runner-up stuff in them as well, which was pretty cool. Okay, so Damian and Tom contacted me a few weeks before the event, and they had I think initially everybody had booked a place. I think they sold out. I think they sold out pretty quickly, and then there was a few situations where people had gone in with doubles partners, and the doubles partner dropped out, and they needed a ringer, and they got in touch with me, which was very kind of them, and started to put the pressure on, should we say, to try and get me to come down and attend their tournament. Very, very lovely of them, of course, to want me to be there, and I wanted to be there. You know, I think they knew that I wanted to be there, and were kind of sort of tugging at that string, as it were. And of course, they did need a player who would come down, and it's an opportunity for all of the channel hosts to be together, which is very rare. And I did want to support their event and their tournament, so I had a little conversation with Jane. I think I spoke to Tom and said, "Listen, pal, like, if you are really, really, really stuck, then I will see what I can do, but it's not ideal. It's literally just before the wedding. I don't think I'm going to get away with being able to do this." And I had the conversation with Jane, and I said the same to her. I said, "Damian and Tom, they're really struggling, sort of just making sure that they've got that sort of final player, as it were, for their tournament." "Oh, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? Calm down." Now, I think Jane's opinion on this was massively swayed by circumstances and events that were just before. Okay, so literally just before, they sent like a channel gift, a wedding present, which was really, really lovely. Of course, they were the Mr. and Mrs. Clark Mickey Mouse hats with the bride and groom, which were lovely, and Jane absolutely adored them. And as such, when I said that Damian and Tom really, really needed help and having someone to be at their tournament, Jane was a lot more forgiving than she might normally be, especially considering when the tournament was. So she said, "Well, you know, it's not really ideal, is it? But, you know, do try and get someone else." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to try and help them get someone else." But the moment that Jane kind of gave a little bit of an amber light, shall we say, I knew in my mind I was going to try and get to this event. Now, who I was going to be partnered with had chopped and changed, because people who could come couldn't come, people who couldn't come could come. And in the end, it looked like I was going to be partnered with a relatively new player called Cirion. Now, I've never met this guy, but he is on the GBHL YouTube channel, and he does comment a lot. He used to be Penny Question and The Plantier and other shows. He is known to you guys as J22. I've never met the guy, but Damian had met him. Damian lives not too far away from him, sort of Twickenham way, and they'd managed to get some games and stuff in the past. So, you know, I asked a few questions like, "What's this guy like?" And I immediately started messaging Jay and said, "Look, it looks like I'm going to be coming down. I'm going to be your doubles partner." Never met before, so it was important that we could try and come up with a theme. Now, I wanted to come up with a cool theme for this. It's not often that you get an opportunity to go to a tournament, a different kind of tournament like this, and there'd be such an emphasis on the fluffiness and the theme, and to be so rewarded for it. And that's the key thing, the rewards. You know, sometimes there's a little bit of a risk-reward thing with theme when you go to a tournament and you want to do well. Of course, you know, theme list can do well, but sometimes a theme list isn't the most optimised list, and therefore there's that element of risk there. Whereas with this, it looked like there were going to be some pretty significant in-game advantages and some really good prizes, so you could get just as good a prize for having a good theme as anything else. So we had to have a little bit of a chat and see what we both had, and that was pretty tough, it has to be said. Jay has, or seems to have, quite a lot of evil, whereas at the time in particular, I don't think I'd received Matt Davies' Angmar stuff yet, I don't think, or maybe I had, but we couldn't really, we were struggling to put together a theme with evil. We were really, really struggling with that. So, lots of what he's got some Minas Tirith. What had I just painted? I painted a bunch of Sons of Eorl. Okay, now I know Damian and Tom reasonably well, and I know that they're not huge fans of the Sons of Eorl and the Sons of Eorl profile. And although it says in the fluff for them, you know, they are the Royal Knights of Rohan, and you know, they are an elite cadre of knight that's sort of named. They're not the actual physical Sons of Eorl, but I think I've heard them say in the past that if they're Sons of Eorl, they like it if it's Sons of Eorl and Eorl the Young, and then to them that kind of makes sense, which is perfectly fine. So I thought, well, that's going to be the only way that I'm going to be able to get that in. And Jay's actually got some Minas Tirith, so all of a sudden you could see the theme here. The only way that I was going to be able to bring the Sons of Eorl was to paint up my Eorl the Young and get Jay, no teeth, no teeth, no teeth, was to paint up the Sons of Eorl and get Jay to bring a Minas Tirith force. So we started fleshing this out, and we were very much going for the birth of Rohan theme. And this theme was the idea that you had the Northmen, led by Eorl, riding to the rescue of Gondor, who were up against it versus the Balcos and the Wain Riders under Steward Cirion. So Jay actually had the Cirion model. Now I know that the Games Workshop Cirion model isn't the Cirion from that particular time, but how often do you see a Cirion? You never see a Cirion. And then it was like standard captains and stuff, and just loads of Minas Tirith chaff, really. So that we had kind of like one elite half. So I was the guy who had the lucky sort of elite half, and then we had the guy who had all of the chaff, really, all of the non-elite, pretty poor stuff, really. So I looked at that, and actually there was part of me that thought that this could do quite well. Mainly because it had quite a hard-hitting edge to it, reasonable amount of might, but it also had quite a lot of numbers, and looking at the rules pack I thought that numbers would be quite important for this because of the scenarios. So what were the scenarios? Well, the scenarios, you had Reconnoiter, which is of course a numbers game, you had To the Death, okay, so To the Death was in there, but there was no sort of banner conditions in there at all. We had Save the Stone, which was kind of like the rescue, I believe, a little bit like the rescue. Then the next day, for the final three, you had Hold Ground, which is a numbers game. You had Lords of Battle, I had the Sons of Eorl, so I still had the killy sort of side of it. And then you had a domination variant, which again, numbers can help you. So there was a big part of it sort of thinking that, well, actually, the numbers side of the Minas Tirith could really help us in this. So let's talk about the rest of the tournament and the other bits and pieces that were involved in it. There was also a fancy dress element, which I only found out a couple of days before. So wanting to get sort of in the full swing of it, I threw something together for this fancy dress competition. And as I was taking Eorl the Young and the Sons of Eorl, I decided to go as Eorl the Young. So what I did was, I have like a plastic Viking helmet thing that I picked up from the Jorvik Centre once. I got some of Jane's blonde hair extensions and had them sort of attached on the inside, so it looked like I had blonde hair coming down. And then really going for the Eorl the Young side of it, I had a sheet which I wrapped around me as like a diaper or a nappy, and then I was wearing literally like an amulet that had a dummy on it, and then some sort of wrist guardy things on my arms, and so I was literally going as Eorl the Young. Okay, so I don't know if you can see what I did there. I'll try and get a picture up now. And to much hilarity when I walked in, it has to be said, and to the utter bemusement of the general public who saw me getting changed outside of my van on the early hours of Sunday morning near Titans Wargaming Club. Okay, there were a few people who dressed up in there. I think a few people, Billy Fitzmaurice had gone as Bomber. There was a Tariel there, I think Sam Jeffrey, there was a few wigs there. I think we had an Olaf. There was a bit of a Frozen thing going on. We had GBHL Jamie and James Braun. I still don't get it, but there's some kind of cult thing that's going on, this Double Dragon cult. They were taking Double Dragon, they've gone through some effort to sort of dress up as members of this cult. So they're wearing these long black robes and had these wooden sticks, and they had embroidery, and they'd made up these little mission book Bible things. So they were there, and those were some of the fancy dress, and most of us resolved to wear those during the whole of the first day. There was a competition for fancy dress, which we'll come to for the award ceremony. Okay, so then we started up with the games, and let's talk a little bit about those. Okay, so the first game was Reconnoiter. and we were drawn in our first game against Callum Edens and James Watt, two very good players. Come up against Callum in the past, he has beaten me, he's won various tournaments as well in the past, so he has done quite well. And we were playing on like this kind of snowy alpine board thing. It had like a shallow river. It kind of went from their end and then sort of cut off a quarter, sort of 2x2 of their board, which we'll come on to. I think it gave them a few problems. And yeah, we had Reconnoiter. So straight away, one of the things that I really enjoyed about this doubles tournament was meeting J22, who, like I say, never met before, spoken to him on the channel, and I really enjoyed the fact that he's a relatively new player, so he had all of that kind of newbie. It reminded me very much when I was getting into it, or when like when I was getting into it, some of the ideas that I had. He was very excited about some of the scenarios, and what I found was that because he just started, it really helped me in a lot of ways, because it put me in a position where I was kind of like, I would take him aside and say, okay, so what do you think that we should do in this? And listen to what he had to say. And then quite often, sort of tell him or teach him how to win the scenario, which is a big thing that we always talk about on the channel. It's not just about the game itself, it's how can I win this scenario. Now, Callum Edens and James Watt had brought a... what they brought? They had elves. They definitely had elves. Oh, what did they have? Okay, so they had Galadrim and High Elves. I think they had Galadrim and High Elves. I seem to remember an Arwen being there, and I seem to remember Galadriel being there. So yeah, I think they had like a High Elf and Galadrim themed list, I think. And they actually had a few more models than us. Which was a little bit worrying. So of course, Reconnoiter is a numbers game. So I got Jay to write down the tally and everything of how this was going to work, and we proceeded to play the game. The way that the game kind of panned out was that Callum and James kind of came on in their corner, and I came on and got quite far up the board, but behind the stream. Sort of opposite them. So they had all these Sons of Eorl and Eorl the Young sort of facing off against them. And that was quite good. So from my point of view, I was kind of defended by the fact that they only had half movement across the stream. And then of course I wasn't affected by the fact that there was a stream, because I was cavalry and was able to get up quite close. Now they did have Nature's Wrath on that side, they did have a bunch of bows, but I was reasonably confident being able to hold them up. The issue with that was that the Minas Tirith, who didn't come on for a couple of turns, or they came on staggered, who were the bulk of our numbers, then came on the opposite side, and me and Jay were talking, and it was very much just get these guys, just start getting some guys off the board. You know, you want to make sure that you get enough to cover leader and break in if we lose our leader, if we get broken. Eorl Young was our leader, so I was just heroic marching him up, getting him away even from the Sons of Eorl. Now, we did manage to get a bunch of stuff off that side of the board. They did send a few things to try and stop us. They made a very slow and cautious advance towards the river. They were very worried about the Sons of Eorl charging over, and I think that was what led them to their defeat. Because even when they got in range, I wasn't interested in engaging with the Sons of Eorl. The Sons of Eorl were purely there to hold them up while we got numbers off and tried to chop into their numbers and try and sort of guarantee the win that way. So they came to the river, I backed away, and then they were like, right, okay, we see what's happening here. Of course, Minas Tirith were just sort of streaming off one side. So then it was a really cool moment, really, where they tried to get across the river, and they were obviously keen to get off the Nature's Wrath to dismount all the horses. And I believe they called a heroic move with one, and I countered with a captain, and what I did was I withdrew with some of my Sons of Eorl, but then I moved this captain, or this single figure, I think it was just a captain, or a dismounted Son of Eorl or a warrior of Minas Tirith, if it was someone who was quite lowly, and literally just moved him to the bank of the river, which meant that because of the half movement, they couldn't cross the river and they couldn't get in range with the Nature's Wrath for another turn, which was quite key. I continued to back away with the Sons of Eorl, charged in when I could, but then the Nature's Wrath inevitably came, and then I was very, very thankful really for the Defence 6. It was the Defence 6 that really kind of kept us going. And in the meantime, on the other side of the board, Warriors of Minas Tirith and stuff were just about getting off. I don't think that we broke them, and I don't think that we got their leader. However, we did get 11 off the board, I think. And that was the score in the end. It was 11 VPs to us and 0 VPs to Callum and James Watt. So a really nice game. We had a good time. Nice to play them both. Good chatting throughout. I think that they were a little bit gutted, you know, and probably realised afterwards that it would have benefited them for it to be a sort of quicker paced game, I suppose. Okay, so then we went into the second game. The second game was modified to the death. Now the way that it had been modified was so that banners didn't affect things. Yeah. So that banners didn't affect anything. Yeah, and that's what we did. Next up we were coming up against a guy who I've not met before called Michael, I forget his second name, and Ben Camp as well. And they brought like the Last Alliance theme. So you had Gil-galad, you had High Elves, you had Númenóreans, you had Isildur, that kind of thing. And then of course we had our army. Now the way that this deployed, they actually deployed a lot of their Númenórean and Elven archers on top of this kind of terrain piece, which in hindsight made it impossible really for our cavalry to kind of get there, and it made just kind of that part of it very, very difficult to deal with. But I have to say, I was looking at it and I did fancy our chances, and this is always the mistake that you can end up making when you play a strategy battle game, is that sometimes you can look at a situation and think, we should take this, and then lose. So what we did here was we actually faced off, and I was reasonably confident that the Defence 6 and the numbers of J22's Minas Tirith, matching the Fight 4 of the Númenóreans because of the Rangers that were behind them in some cases, and then of course the Defence 6 negating the Strength 3 of the Elves and the Númenóreans on the other side. I was reasonably confident that that would hold up enough because of the numbers for the Sons of Eorl to really get round the flank, get round behind and cause some damage. Which kind of started off that way. But then we proceeded to have a couple of really awful rounds. And after a couple of poor rounds from Gil-galad, who had sort of struggled in a few different ways, he really came into his own, and I think they started to win a few of the roll-offs as well, which made it really tough for us, like really, really tough. And we just weren't getting them. And I'd been quite risky with Eorl. Eorl was the leader, but I kept him there or thereabouts because I wanted his might for the heroic moves and perhaps the 3-point might. But really, I probably could have done with just keeping him out of it, because in the end he got into a lot of trouble, and he died. And we were coming towards the end of the game, and they weren't broken. Now I think in the last bit, they weren't broken, we weren't broken, but Eorl had died. And then we only needed to kill like a couple more of their troops. And there were all these combats. I think there was something like 15 combats, and a lot of them, like we outnumbered them. We had like a Son of Eorl on one with like another guy with a spear support and such. And we needed to kill a couple. And it got down to the second to last combat out of something like 15-20 combats, however many it was, and we still hadn't done it. And I was looking at Jay and I was like, you need to do this now. You need to, because the game is going to end like after this. You need to make sure you kill this just so we get the draw. And luckily, like with 2 combats to go, we did manage to kill the one that we needed. But that was really scary. That was really, really, really scary, watching that rolling and thinking this game is going to slip away. That was a really good fun game. Like, we really, really enjoyed it. I've never played Michael before. We learned a few things in the game as well, rules-wise, all of us, which was good. And I think it's my first time playing opposite Ben Camp, even though I've seen him at a few tournaments. So that was a really good fun draw, and I think possibly one of my favourite games. So very much enjoyed that. And then we had, did we have lunch then? I can't remember if we had lunch. I think we might have had lunch either before that game or after that game, whichever way it was. I can't remember, it doesn't matter. I'd brought a bunch of my own supplies because I had the wedding coming up, so I had like chicken breast and spinach and stuff. And of course I was half naked because I was dressed as Eorl the Young, so I didn't want too much bloating or anything while I was wearing that. And then we played the Capture the Stone, which was very, very much, it was very, very much like the Rescue. So we need to have a little look at your Desolation of Smaug source books and all that is. And we were actually playing the Ringer team for this one, and it was going to be the lovely Mr. Damian O'Byrne, GBHL Damian. And he brought like a really cool list that was like an Uruk Scout element with a bunch of like warg riders and things, that were just normal warg riders. So tons and tons of warg riders, some with throwing spear and things, and then just a bunch of like Uruk-hai scouts basically, with like a captain and mahur and no shaman or anything like that. Nothing particularly competitive, but of course Damian's a good player. And we're in a situation now where really we needed to win, or at the very least draw, to win the whole thing. We're quite reliant on what else was going. So win and a draw. I think that the guys before us maybe had a draw and a draw that we played, or a loss and a draw. Of course Callum had a loss, and I think they might have had a win, loss and a win. So yeah, it was an interesting situation. I think that we needed to not lose for it. So anyway, we started the game, and he deployed his Uruks in the middle, the Uruk-hai warband, and our objective was to wipe out that entire warband. These were the ones who'd got the stone. This wasn't the Seven Stones. This was, what's it called? Save the Stone. There we go. And then he had a relief force which would come on from a board edge, and we would come on and we would try and surround him. So our job was to try and completely wipe out that middle force, which I have to say, with the Marauder upgrade, was it more with the Marauder upgrade from the Mahur with the 8-inch movement, made that a little bit tougher. But one of the wonderful things about that game was that it was just great fun to play. I've never played an army like the one that Damian brought on before, so that was really good fun. Actually, all of those orcs coming in on wargs was actually a lot scarier than you'd think. You know, they're obviously pretty terrible, but when there's lots of them, they pose quite a big threat. You know, lots of strength 4. You've got a throwing spear as well, so there's a threat range. There's loads of them, absolutely loads of them. You know, and that was a really interesting scrap. You know, it came down to a couple of heroic move-offs and things. I think in the end we were about 3 or 4 models away from killing him, but we didn't quite get there. We didn't quite manage to kill all his models. His objective was to break us, I think, maybe? To break us? I can't remember. But it ended up a situation where his Uruk-hai had effectively escaped from one side of where we kind of tried to close in, and then we found ourselves in the middle, surrounded by Uruk-hai on one side, and then Warg Riders all around the other side of it. And that did end up as a 0-0 draw, so we'd avoided the loss, and as such, because of other results, J22 and I had somehow won our second game, which was pretty amazing, really, really amazing. So then, yeah, that was the third game. I have to say, I was absolutely sweating, even though I wasn't wearing many clothes. I was sweating. I could not wait to get clean and to change out my clothes. We were going to be going up and doing a quiz. I can't remember the name of the pub. Catcher in the Rye. That sounds right. Is it Catcher in the Rye? And they'd organised like a buffet thing for us in the evening. The buffet was very good. One cheeky, some cheeky people in the pub actually went over and helped themselves to a plate of our wings, and Damian went over and confronted them, which was highly amusing. Really good to catch up with a few people that I've not managed to speak to much, like Loki Hargreaves. There were a couple of others as well that I managed to speak to. We had lots and lots of drinks, lots of rounds being bought. Tom's girlfriend Lily had organised the quiz, the Fiendish Finchley quiz that evening, which was very good. And I have to say we were very lucky to have Damian in our team. And as such, after not a lot of contribution from the rest of the team, I think it was me, Jay, Jay Finnegan, Stephen Crow, and not many others. Fallon was there as well, had been helping with the cakes and things, selling cakes. That was another thing, they were selling cakes and tea on the first day. Was always on sort of like a constant supply. The tea was great, all in proper mugs, which, you know, is how it should be. So yeah, I'm pleased to report that, that I did manage to be part of the winning quiz team. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say thank you very much, Damian, for being on our team and helping us win that, and commiserations to the team that drew with us. So yeah, we had a really good night. We were staying at the Chumley Lodge, and I was bunking in on a room with Damian, Tom and Lily. After Catcher in the Rye was closing, we proceeded to sort of trek around trying to find another bar to go and have a drink with, which we were unsuccessful with, but we did find an off licence, and we managed to get some bits and pieces from there, including a pack of Oreos. Go back to the room. There was much fun to be had on the balcony. We all crashed in on Chris from Titans in his room. I woke up with Bomber spooning me. That was Billy Fitzmaurice, and I can't remember who was on the other side. I didn't even make it into Damian and Tom's room. So yeah, that was that evening. Really good fun as always. I would massively recommend going to these tournaments just for the social side alone. The social side alone is absolutely amazing. So yeah, woke up next day a little bit rough. Didn't wear my costume for the second day. Wore some normal clothes, and we got into day two. So this was actually this was kind of the main bit now. I suppose, you know, everybody had something to play for, no matter where you were. One thing that had happened during the Fiendish quiz is that various prizes were given out for the theme and for other things like best painted and most heroic acts as well. So some of those things were read out, and people got like cards that gave them in-game advantages. I can't remember what they were, but they were some really good in-game advantages they could use on the second day. And all of that had kind of been announced while the quiz was on. The quiz was great. So then, yeah, everybody had a chance to do something on the second day. All you needed to do was to win your 3 games, to win your group. And we found ourselves in the top group, which was very interesting. So we knew that we were going to have a tough time. And lo and behold, who should we draw for the first game? But Dave Nolan and Michael Romby. Okay, so I've never played Michael Romby before, but I've met him at Desolation of Stockport. Seems like a really nice guy. Well, he was a nice guy. And Dave Nolan, who you will have seen in maybe a couple of these videos, and hasn't been on the tournament scene for very long, but tends to do very well. I played him before at Stirling competitively, and managed to win that game. And they had brought an Isengard army. Now, they've been given special permission because I think they were like a last-minute sort of partnership that was kind of thrown together. They both had Isengard armies. But one of the wonderful things to see was this was like a kind of siege-themed Isengard force. So they had like a demolition team in there, which was really cool. I mean, you never ever see demolition teams. But apart from that, a reasonably strong Isengard army. Not tons of... it wasn't spammed with berserkers and ferals, although I think there was a few in there. Numbers-wise, I think they matched us, maybe even exceeded us number-wise. And the game was hold ground. And again, I immediately knew what to do with this one. and me and my partner, we went and we had a little bit of a chat about what to do for the scenario, to try and win the scenario. And of course with hold ground, we were never going to beat these guys, an Isengard army, with all their strength 4, fight 4, versus Minas Tirith chaff. Yeah, there's Sons of Eorl in there and everything, but the Sons of Eorl die just as easy. Their defense 6, their 1 wound. And we were playing on a board that sort of had lots of buildings on as well. Some of the conflicts buildings, which I absolutely love, conflicts terrain buildings. So yeah, straight away, the thing was, we've got to try and make sure that we get on that objective first, and they've got to try and fight us off of it, and hopefully the game ends and there's more of us on it than not. Because there was a house in the middle that kind of assisted that a little bit, because it meant that we didn't have to completely just crowd out the middle, we could kind of form a perimeter. And that kind of went to plan. We did manage to get on the heroic march up. But this is where Dave and Michael really made a mistake in this game, was when they were doing Maelstrom. Now Maelstrom can mess you up for the whole game, and it certainly did for these guys. They rolled, and for their first roll I could pick a point on the north or south or whatever it was. Okay, and they didn't might it up or down, which allowed me to pick a corner of the board of which, to get to the middle, there were lots and lots of walls and fences that would require jump tests. And this is where they lost the game, because in a game where time was going to be very, very important, they spent a lot of time trying to get their army together, trying to get it to climb walls, things getting left behind, trying to climb more walls to get themselves in. I mean, it was a long time before they even reached combat. I think we only managed to get a couple of rounds of combat in even then. And then it just showed how effective the Uruk-hai are. Against a not optimised army, even though their army wasn't optimised. Now, one thing I was really disappointed about, even though we did go on and win that game, so we did win our first game, was that the demolition charge didn't get used. I did say today, I was like, I'll just use it. We've crowded out the objective. This is the final turn. Let's see what happens. But I think there was maybe that slight possibility that if they killed everything in all their combats, then they could reduce the number of VPs that we had. But we did win that game. It was simply because we were able to get to the objective first, crowd it out, and the enemy would have to fight us off it, and they took a long time to get there. So yeah, that was our first game, and wow, we'd won, which meant that we were only 2 games away from winning the whole thing, which was a bit crazy at this point. Jay's eyes were like that, and I suppose I was trying to make sure my eyes weren't like that, trying to be dead cool about it, but I could feel it. I was like, it's on. This is a fun doubles event, but we might win something here. So went into the next game, and the next game was Lords of Battle. Now, Lords of Battle is a game traditionally I've been quite good at as a cavalry army, because the cavalry army didn't give much away, but could deal quite a bit of damage, sort of wounds wise. But now, of course, with horses counting, that's a different kettle of fish. So we were up against Jay Finnegan and Steve Crow from Manchester, representing Manchester. Now I have to say, this was possibly, I would say they were maybe my favourites in a lot of ways for the whole thing. Jay's done pretty well at tournaments before. Steve's obviously more, a bit more experienced now as well. But it was the army. I think it was one of the most complete armies there. They had some very good heroes, and they had a ton of troops and a ton of really good troops. They brought a Mirkwood Elves army and a Lake Town army, like Lake Town militia army combined. So they had tons and tons of models and really, really, really good heroes. And again, we were playing on a kind of on like a town style board. It had like a town centre in the middle and all this kind of thing. And our thing here was they had much superior bow fire to us, but was really just sort of trying to pick the fights and trying to stay away from their heroes, because Thranduil, could easily have sort of chopped through and caused us lots of problems. So it was quite important for us to kind of keep them spread out, and they kind of formed like a defensive presence with their archers over on the right flank. I threatened their archers by putting half my Sons of Eorl there, supported with some infantry to go in after. We had quite a bit of infantry in the middle with our bows, but they didn't have bows in the middle. And then they were kind of blocking off around their left flank, and I put some more cavalry over there, and then again there was some more infantry sort of supporting them. But really the main bulk of our infantry was in the middle, whereas they were a little bit more thinly spread all the way around, but then they had their heroes behind. So the reason why I put the cavalry on the left flank was I wanted to really sort of put their archers under pressure early on, stop them getting a couple of cheeky kills, and we actually managed to get some cheeky kills at their middle, because of course they've got some low defence with some of our rangers. The idea was to get the cavalry up there and then support it with the infantry, was to not press too much in the middle but get close enough to affect things, and just try and keep that middle bit from, it was either going to have to make a decision to go over and help their archers on the right flank, or to go and help where I was really pressing, which was over on their left flank, where Thranduil was waiting, because Eorl the Young was coming in. We had some Sons of Eorl coming round, and then we had an infantry line that was coming up to engage their infantry line, basically so that they would struggle to make a decision either way. Now, this was a very, very even game, and probably the toughest of all of the games. The army was a very, very good army, but one thing that our tactics sort of in the middle really helped with was that there was a bit of indecision on their part what to do, or maybe not what to do, but I think they were waiting for the right time to get Bard and Thranduil involved in the game. And I'm pretty sure they had a plan, but from where I was, it looked like they weren't sure which way to go. But they go over to the right flank, where, to be fair, the Sons of Eorl were kind of losing us the points battle, because every time one of those went down, there was a couple of VPs. So they were giving away a lot of VPs when Sons of Eorl were going down. And the infantry wasn't quite getting there quick enough. And then some of their middle did start peeling over to the right, and Bard decided to go that way, and at that point we then pressed the middle and started to get a bit of an advantage there. On their left flank, where Thranduil hadn't really sort of managed to engage, there was kind of like a house, and Eorl and some Sons of Eorl had come around one way, and then some had gone around the other way, supported by infantry. And then Thranduil was just kind of stranded in the middle. And it was, did he go out to the middle to help where sort of Bard had gone off to the right, and he did go to the middle and help the middle? Or did he stay and kick some bum here? And I think that from my point of view, was where we might have won the game, was the fact that they had some big heroes in there that didn't do anything in the game, and they only just lost as well. So I didn't give you the score for the Dave versus Michael game. We won 38-13, so it was a pretty comprehensive win. Versus James Steve, it was 22-20. So if they'd have killed one more Son of Eorl, that would have been it. Now, I know that in that final turn of the game, they really wanted to speed it up to get another turn in, because I think they felt that, right, okay, well, now next turn we're going to be able to get our heroes in and do something. But there was literally like 30 seconds left when they wanted to sort of speed it up. I was like, listen, this is going to be it, and let's count it up and see what it is, because we're kind of artificially forcing another round. But again, it wasn't a particularly slow game, but we both did have a lot of models. They in particular did have a lot of models, and it was a very tactical game, one of my favourite games. But we were victorious, and that meant that Jay and I found ourselves effectively in the final, in a shootout. And in the shootout, we were playing against Hector and Godolphin. And these guys, what was the last game? The last game was Domination, and these guys had brought a Mirkwood Ranger. There was Mirkwood Rangers, and there was Galadriel, if I remember rightly. I think there was Mirkwood Rangers and Galadriel. I can remember Galadriel being there, and this was Domination. Now, they'd obviously done really well. I don't think they'd sort of been up there on that sort of top table final game before from memory, although they might have done, no offence if you have. And I could see J22 getting excited, and inside I was a little bit excited, because I looked at it and I had to say that because of our numbers and because of our manoeuvrability, I did feel like we were going to win that game before we started. However, we've all fallen into that trap before. I did feel like that we were going to be able to take that. The Domination, I'm pretty sure, was the variant version of Domination as well, where there were 7 objectives instead of a single one. The 7 stones, there's a theme here. And yeah, I was pretty confident. So, we outnumbered them in the middle, so some good tic-tacs there. Got the cavalry out to sort of some far-reaching bits and pieces over on the right flank. Sent some stuff back. That meant that right from the start we kind of had like 5 of the 7, which meant that they would have to move towards us, and then they were under a lot of threat. And we just outnumbered and outpowered them really. And at no point during that game did I feel like we were going to lose that game. So very, very different to the game before, where the game before really felt like the final in a lot of ways. The last game, it was kind of nice. I bet there's not been many top table last game atmospheres like that, because Hector and Godolphin were great fun to play. Really enjoyed that game. You know, I don't think I've played against either of them before, so that was really cool. Right, really enjoyed playing them for the first time. And yeah, like there were a couple of little rules things, a couple of things like, you know, could they stand like a Mirkwood Ranger on top of like a barrel and stuff like that, like we just, you know, deploy like that. And I was like, no, not really, because, you know, it makes it very, very hard to get them back down. And, you know, just a couple of little things like that early on, and later on, you know, like whether they could shoot if they could see the base of a model that was lying down, if the base was sticking up like to the side, but, you know, did that mean that they could hit the model? And there was just a couple of things like that. But really, for a top table final game, it was very, very relaxed, which I was very thankful of. And lo and behold, unbelievably, J22 and I, a team that had been put together the very last second. I obviously wasn't meant to be there. It was J22's first ever Great British Hobby League tournament. Let's bear that in mind. Taking the Birth of Rohan list, we had managed to win the SBG 7 Stones double event, and that's my first ever tournament win. So I'd like to say a big thank you to J22 for being such a great partner, for all of your sort of enthusiasm and willingness to kind of really get into the game and to learn as well, because he was asking really good questions that made me think, sort of made me revert back to when I've been trying to teach people in the past. And it kind of really made it clearer to me, because sometimes I think you can get lost when you're on your own, you know, and sometimes even forget your own rules about, you know, play for the scenario. But I think in so many of our games, I felt like we shouldn't have won. So, for example, the Reconnoiter game, we were outnumbered against a better army. Before that game, I thought they're going to beat us. This was Callum and thingy. They're going to beat us. So, Jay, this is what we need to try and do to win this. You know. Interestingly, in the games that I thought that we maybe should have won, so versus Ben Camp and Michael, and versus Damian, in those games, those were the games that we drew. So it was 2 draws. And then on the second day, felt like we had no right really beating the Isengard army. Felt like we had no right beating the new Mirkwood Elf list with the Lake Town army. And then really maybe that final game, the final game was almost like a reward for the rest of the tournament, just because of the nature it was played in. It was good fun, it was pretty relaxed, and it didn't kind of feel like we had to try and sign a game to win in any kind of way. So it was really, really cool. So let me show you some really cool stuff. So obviously you've seen the pub quiz certificate. These are lovely little certificates. We like these. Nice paper. Well done, fellas. I think the background of that, which is Middle Earth, was borrowed from Chris Young for something that they've done in the past. I was also very, very lucky to get this prize, which was the most fabulous winner. So this was for my fancy dress, James Eorl Clark. There we go. So a little bit of a reward for turning up half naked on the first day. And then this is my certificate. And of course J22 got one as well for winning the Plantier Cup and winning the SBG doubles event. So that was pretty cool. And then these were the main prizes. So of course, in this tournament review, I'm very lucky to be able to show you this. These were great prizes. When these got put up, the pictures got put up, I was very excited. Once I knew that I could attend, although I honestly didn't think that I would be able to get one of these, unless it was for having sort of the best themed army or something along those lines. So here we go. These are Plantiers. I don't know if you can make that out. Let me just. It's a little bit dusty actually. It has been on my bookshelf So there we go, it's an engraved Palantir, and it says the Seven Stones winner of the Palantir Cup 2015. Isn't that cool? And of course 7 of these were given out, funnily enough, with that whole Palantir theme. And some people got this. There were people who came like, what was it? Oh, I can't work out the maths. It's 888. So there were people who came at 25th who got a prize like this, and I really like that element. There were people who bought really fluffy armies that got this. You know, so absolutely fantastic prizes. Really enjoyed the theme of it. Great tournament. Good venue as always. Fantastic tea. Big thank you to Fallon and to Emma O'Byrne for going around, making sure that everybody had tea, eating cake, all that kind of stuff. Massive thanks for that, guys. Thanks to all of our opponents. We didn't not enjoy any of our games. We enjoyed all of them. Big thanks to Tom and Damian for running a great event. I really enjoyed it. It was my first ever doubles experience. Would I recommend it to people? Hell yes, I would. I would really recommend it. Just something completely different, really good fun, different dynamic, and I love the way that they did it so that the theme was key. The theme was key, and that it didn't really matter. It didn't really matter. It wasn't all about going there and winning the whole thing. It was more about going there and anybody had a chance to win something on that second day. There was also a really great raffle. You know, you had an opportunity to buy raffle tickets. Everybody got entered in for a raffle. There were some brilliant prizes, from sort of art books to bookmarks to dice that were donated from various places. And yeah, that was that. That was the SBG 7 Stones double event. So massive congratulations to Tom and Damian for running their first ever event. I look forward to the next one. I would recommend that everybody goes down and tries that out for something different if they choose to do it again. So that's been my ramblings. I'm sorry that it's just been me here in the gym on my own with a puppy, trying to make sure that he's not pooing and weeing everywhere, trying to remember what went on. I've done my best. I hope it wasn't too boring, and I hope that you managed to get a ton of painting done. So don't forget to comment, like, share and subscribe. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and support Jamie on Patreon so he can continue to make more videos. Support your hobby, and happy strategy up game.